Breaking news, Kagura's Verity might not be worth it for you to pull on. We're going to touch on that obviously in this video. A lot of you guys are going to have the ability to save tons and tons and tons of Primo Gems, avoid the weapon banner, and lose a very small amount of damage, which is why it could be a trap for you. You could be trapping yourself into pulling for like a 2% DPS increase. So this video is set up to already be a banger of information for you. If you want to see stuff like this or just having fun with Genshin Impact, make sure you hit that sub button, come back for more. And as always, make sure you have a good day out there. Now, if you don't know what Kagura's Verity is yet, quick description of it real quick. It has 608 base attack, 66.2% crit damage as its secondary stat. And then the ability here works very well with Yae Miko. You gain a Kagura dance whenever you use an elemental skill. You can have 3 stacks of this, and each stack is going to give you elemental skill damage increase of 12% at refinement rank 1, which will give you 36% elemental damage increase to your elemental skill only. Now, if you have all 3 stacks, you will also gain an additional 12% electro damage bonus for Yae Miko as well. And that obviously will work on both your charge attack, your normal attack, your elemental skill, as well as your elemental burst. Having all 3 stacks is very easy to do, so you're gonna have this thing maxed out all of the time. And while this weapon is her best weapon, there are 2 other weapons that are also incredibly powerful, because this weapon has a stat line that is basically identical to the Lost Prayer of the Sacred Winds, which has 608 attack, same as the Kagura Verity, but instead of 66.2% crit damage, Lost Prayers has 33.1 crit chance. Literally, the builds for these 2 weapons are identical, but if you're using the good old Kagura's Verity, you're going to be using a crit chance circlet, and if you're using Lost Prayers, you use a crit damage circlet, which means that both these weapons in that circlet are going to give you 33.1 crit chance and 66.2 crit damage. You're just going to swap the circlet. It's the best circlet for either of those builds, which means that these weapons baseline, before you talk about the passives at all for either of them, do the exact same amount of damage actually. Now, while we're on the topic of weapons, there is another one here as well, which you may have multiple copies of, which is the Widseth. So if you've been blessed with many Widseths, this is pretty good for Yae Miko as well. 510 base attack, showing those 4-star stats, but has 55.1 crit damage bonus. So it's like a mini Kagura's Verity, but the ability here is very strong as well. Now it has a 30-second cooldown, but it will either give you at R5 120% attack buff for 10 seconds, 96% elemental damage buff, or 480 elemental mastery. Now, 2 of these buffs are very, very strong. The elemental mastery buff, though, isn't all of that strong. So let's get into the numbers for you guys so you can see what's going on with this character. But we've used all of these weapons here with a charge attack, so you can see that damage there, and the elemental skill that hits 3 times because you can have 3 totems out, which happens every 2 to 3 seconds. They will all attack 1 enemy. Then you have your burst damage, which is going to be a very large 22-second giant destroy all my totems, blow up the world sort of thing. Now, the build for all of these different weapons here is the same. We are using an elemental damage goblet. We are going to be using 4-piece thunder soother in here as well, attack percent sands. The only thing that's different between these weapons is if you're using a crit chance circlet or a crit damage circlet, and that is to keep your crit chance around 80%. We also have 25 crit chance in substats and 80% crit damage in substats as well, followed by like a little bit of attack percent, but it's all equal between all of the builds here. Now, if you take a look at Widseth here, 21,000 damage on average with these stats with the charge attack. Your elemental skill is going to do 42,000, 706,000 damage from that elemental burst, and this is Widseth with no proc whatsoever. Kagura's Verity with no proc is going to do 24,000 damage on a charge attack, 49,000 damage from her elemental skills, 814,000 damage from her burst, which is exactly the same as the Lost Prayer with no proc either. However, the Kagura is going to be able to have that proc available, like I said, 100% of the time. So what does the damage look like afterwards? Well, you have a 26,000 damage charge attack now and an 868,000 damage burst. This is because the only thing that you're getting for those 2 skills is the 12% electro damage increase. However, your E goes up by a pretty substantial amount. 3 hits of your E jump up to 62,000 damage. And if you're not using Yae Miko as a main DPS, you're probably never going to even see a stack of Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds at all, because you need to be on the field for 4 seconds, and you can plop all your E's down, use your burst, and plop all your E's down again, and you might get that stack right after you leave the battlefield. So then there's the Widseth R5 here. So if you proc the attack percent buff, you have a 33,000 damage charge attack, a 66,000 damage on your E that hits 3 times, and then you're going to have that elemental burst damage do over 1 million, almost 1.1 million damage in raw damage to enemies. This is before level correction and enemy resistances or resistance downs that are applied, which is substantial. The damage percent bonus as well, that 69% damage bonus, is just under that with 1 million burst damage still, 32,000, almost 33,000 charge attack there, and 65,000 damage on the E. If you get the elemental mastery buff from the Widseth, really you're only buffing up your E's a little bit more than the other buffs did. Grand total is 59,000, almost 60,000 raw damage on the E there. Now, notably, this does have a 30-second cooldown, so you're gonna have a lot of the time, 2 out of every 3 times you use your elemental burst, you're gonna have one of the 3 random procs. So the Widseth is a little RNG, but it also will average out over time. You're gonna have that, 700,000 damage burst, followed by a 1.1 million damage burst, followed by 700,000 damage burst, and another 1.1 million burst. So it's gonna average out as long as you can hit one of those 2 things. And it's a very friendly, free-to-play budget option if you've been playing the game for a while and you've had a lot of Widseths dropped your way while trying to get new 5-star characters in Genshin. Now, out of all of these weapons, the Kagura one still is the best, but if you're focused on, you want to do big burst damage, you're trying to use her as a main carry with charge attacks and stuff, it doesn't really buff up those parts of her kit all that much there, but it does substantially increase the amount of damage you do with your E skill. So this could be by far a weapon worth pulling for you. However, if you intend to use her as a general DPS or even still a support, and you don't want to go through the weapon banner because you have access to Lost Prayers, you have access to the Widseth still, right? You've pulled on those a couple of times, you have them sitting in your account already. It might be worthwhile for you there to skip the weapon and maybe get like Constellation 1 instead. The banner is not as bad as the weapon banner. You can get C1 for Yae Miko, get 24 energy regen, and build up your damage that way. Drop some energy recharge out of her substats because you get 24 free energy, so you can build higher attack percent, higher crit chance, higher crit damage on your artifacts, and also save primo gems by not pulling on the weapon banner at the same time. And getting access to the Constellation 1 for that 24 extra energy is going to make her easier to build for you and is going to on average cost you less primo gems, because remember, her burst costs 90 energy, and depending on what team you're running her in, you might not have access to a lot of energy support, so you might need to build her with a lot of energy recharge in these certain team compositions. So you could trade doing a little bit extra damage with Kagura's Verity, or have a lot more accessibility and playability with your Yae Miko, which I think I'm personally going to do. But whatever one it is you choose, I hope you get it easily and quick, and maybe you get both, who knows?